Hello, this is Andre. I'm very, very, very sorry that we had some delays to begin this live transmission. Where I live, sometimes it happens. We had a cut of light for a few minutes just before I started the session, but hopefully now we're going to be able to go and do our presentation. I'm very glad for being here. I would like to thank Carl for inviting me to talk about this very interesting subject, which is the use of artificial intelligence with NLP coaching and therapy. I first learned about uh, Chat GPT in the beginning of last year, in the beginning of 2023, when someone in my social medias told me that my name appeared on the Chat GPT as one of the top names in NLP in Brazil. And I didn't know what was the Chat GPT. What was that all about? I had no idea. And I started to learn about it, and I was fascinated, as I'm sure most of you experienced when you learned about ChatGPT. And I would like to start first by telling you that to excuse my English, because although I understand English very well, it's not my primary language, and I'm sure I might mispronounce a couple of things, but I'll do my best to do the best presentation possible for you. When I knew ChatGPT 3, um, I, 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 I kind of try to use it as if it would be an assistant for me, helping my clients and everything. But I wasn't very happy about it because in the Chat 3, it was very limited. We would start talking about a client, writing about a client and the problems and everything that was happening. And sometimes, after some time, the chat would forget about what we were talking about in the beginning. And so it was very nice just for very specific things, short answers. But after I knew about Chat GPT-4, I was on the list to be one of the first to get access to Chat GPT-4. Unfortunately, we have to pay about $20, if I'm not mistaken, to use it. I felt a very big change in how the chat was working, and uh, it would remember everything about the client, everything about what we write in the beginning of the chat. And then I could make some very interesting experiments using ChatGPT as a tool for therapy. And I'm going to share my screen with you because I have a presentation here. And we're going to talk about this very fascinating thing that is the use of Chat GPT. I'm sure you all are very interested about this. I don't know how much of you are already using Chat GPT to help you with your clients and everything. So I wrote an article which is available in NLP in my blog about this subject, in which I worked with a client. And it kept me wondering, can we rely on Chat GPT to help us with our clients, with our job? Can Chat GPT be trustful for informations? Can we rely on Chat GPT? Well, let's start by explaining what is Chat GPT. I don't know how many of you know what Chat GPT is. So, ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence language model that uses machine learning techniques to produce text that resembles human writing. It's developed by OpenAI based on GPT, generative pre trained transformer architecture. Significance. Its design allows to participate in conversations by predicting and generating text based on the input it receives, making it a potentially valuable tool in digital communication and content creation. And ChatGPT can engage in dialogue, answer questions, and provide information that is contextually relevant, demonstrating a strong grasp of language nuances. And for instance, ChatGPT can simulate therapeutic scenarios, offer mental health advice within its programming limits, and serve as a practice tool for therapists to develop their conversational skills. It's very interesting. And the difference between the chat GPT 3 and 4, many people don't want to pay for the 4. I strongly advise you, if you are serious about using ChatGPT in your work as a coach or a neurolinguistic programmer, practitioner, or master trainer, or if you are a therapist, I think you should make this investment and pay for ChatGPT 4 because it's a lot better, and including the reduction of distortions that I found on GPT-3. I didn't find it very much on the fourth. Of course, sometimes we always should verify the references, but most of what it produces in the four is really reliable because I'm always checking when I write something, when I use when it suggests NLP techniques. But sometimes, once in a while, there's always something misinterpreted, or they consult some kind of source that is not the best source, and sometimes there are things that are a little wrong. So the transformation from 3 to 4 has seen significant improvements in the model's learning algorithms, which enhance its ability to understand and respond to complex queries more accurately. Therapeutics application. These improvements make GPT-4 more reliable assistant in therapy settings where nuanced understanding and sensitive communication are crucial. And it's very important for therapy because it can be very sensitive. I hadn't asked the chat to be sensitive with the client, but when I analyzed the transcript of the chat, I found ChatGPT being very sensitive. And once the chat learned that I was working with NLP, and I tried to ask how it was successful, because in 2 sessions, the client solved lots of things. She had lots of problems regarding a relationship that was going wrong, and she was very depressive and anxious about it. And with 2 sessions, ChatGPT gave lots of suggestions, which she worked through the suggestions, and she felt a lot better, a lot faster than many therapists. And I didn't do anything. I was just there helping her to understand if there's something written or suggested that wasn't quite uh, perfect, or if she didn't understand, but she just followed what the chat said. And after she finished the sessions, I asked the chat GPT, how did you do it? How did you make this happen? And one of the things that the chat wrote to me is that the chat, knowing that we were dealing with NLP, the chat realized that the client was very visual. And so the chat used lots of visual languages and told me that, decided to do that, although I didn't ask the chat to do that. But he assumed it because it was an NLP intervention that he should be sensitive to this kind of thing. And I didn't find it in the 3, but in the fourth, it's impressive. This kind of thing keep happening, and it helped us quite a lot in the process. Usage scenarios. ChatGPT can be used to draft hypothetical therapy sessions, generate patient scenarios for training purposes, and offer a non judgmental space for patients to express thoughts freely. It's very interesting, and especially if you tell ChatGPT to be sensitive, to make report, and to adapt to the client's language, it can do a great report with the client, and it's really amazing. Benefits in practice. This can help in extending the therapeutic reach with consistent preliminary support, allowing real therapists to focus on deeper psychological intervention if we trust the prompts that we are using, and we kind of know that it's working. It's a lot easier for us therapists, coaches, to focus on what the client needs and other things, and because you trust, you have prompts that are accurate about bringing techniques and process that work. That's what I do. My practice as a clinical psychologist, because I'm a clinical psychologist in Brazil, who, besides doing regular therapy, I do a therapy with NLP and hypnotherapy, all integrated. And ChatGPT is being very helpful because I can do lots of things. I can plan lots of things and add lots of things to the process. And all the feedbacks from the clients are very good. So the chat would bring security for new and old therapists and experienced therapists, not necessarily old. A great challenge that I observe in new and even in more experienced therapists eventually is the desire for a sense of security to apply their therapeutic processes, making a good reading of the case that the client brings and considering the various strategies and possibilities to work with. That's very helpful because we can access to a lot of things. Because what I thought that was interesting for me is when I saw a client, uh, I would search for everything I know in terms of NLP, and during the session I had to listen to the client and also to decide during the process what I would do with the client. And that's what I do. Sometimes I'm going to do a hypnotherapy, and I, besides the hypnosis, I combine NLP techniques within the hypnotic process. And at the end, I always like it to throw some affirmations. Now I have the affirmations pre-prepared in the chat GPT, a specific chat GPT about affirmations that I built it, and I just inserted what the client needs. It provides the affirmations that are very consistent to what the client needs, and I add that at the end of the hypnotherapy, and all the clients like it very much because it's very precise. The metaphors are very good. I'll tell you about it very soon. About my experiences using ChatGPT. The favorable results I got come from framework given in the initial prompt when I defined who and what the chat would be. That's very important. Specifically, wrong and poorly made entries could generate distorted responses. This is very important because, as I'm sure that most of you know by this time using the chat GPT, it can't do your job. The chat can't do your job alone. Because if you only say, tell me something based on NLP to help me to overcome my social phobia, it will be nice, it will be okay. But if you are a professional and you have a strategy for your therapy, for your coaching, or for whatever you work with, you can do more specific prompts which are consistent to your approach. And this way, the chat can respond very well. And as more as you interact with the chat, more you have good responses uh, with the chat, because it kind of refines what it is doing. It's like as if the chat is understands more and more as the more you use the more the chat understands what you're doing and keep provide, in my opinion, better and better responses. But you have to know what you're doing. You have to filter, because sometimes, even with all your prompts and cares, sometimes some suggestions are not quite appropriate to the client. So we have to filter. That's why I advocate strongly that a good professional can be intermediating what comes from the chat GPT to the client. The fact that the client and I understand the field of NLP, the client that I use it in the article that is available in my blog and in the NLP, we understand psychology and NLP, it could have helped with the responses, as we made clear statements for it, the chat to produce the appropriate responses. Therefore, a well-trained NLP therapist, coach, or trainer seems indispensable for more precise answers to humanize the interaction, as well as help the client to decide on criteria and approaches that would be better suit the situation, as I said before. And so I think now that can ChatGPT help therapists? Yes, I think it can help therapists, not the third, but the fourth generation of ChatGPT, about the various strategies they can use to help their clients with a consistent range of strategies in hand. The therapist can have a variety of possibilities to use with their clients. I have experimented with NLP and would deeply appreciate seeing similar research with other therapeutic approaches. With NLP, I was very impressed because it covered everything. My article is a long article, but it covers everything because I displayed all the strategies that decided to use, and I asked it questions. Why did you use this? Why did you decide it? And was very impressed. It was like I was talking to another master trainer who understands a lot on NLP and had a strategy to work with the client. First, the chat in my experiment, work it with the client. Then I asked, how did you do it? As NLP did in the beginning. How does it work? How can you do it? And I asked the same thing to the chat. How did you do it? How can you do it? Why did you decide to work this way with the client? And I was very impressed because there was a very sophisticated, complete thinking and understanding of processes step by step. And that is in the article. That's long to present here, but I strongly recommend you to take a look at the article that is in the blog. So how do we start the process? I mean, my intention here is to help those who are not very familiar with how to use ChatGPT for therapy and coaching to start this process. What I'm going to tell you here is my map. It's my experience. I'm going to say, I'm going to talk to you about things that I like to work with my clients. You may change a bit. You can remove some of the things that I like to work with and insert things that you like to work with. So we need to start by saying specifically what role ChatGPT 4 plays in detail. It's very important. Before you make any questions, you have to tell the chat who the chat is going to be. And this is very tricky because in the beginning I could say you are a psychologist, you are a therapist, but I've been experiencing that the chat is refusing now to do anything to have this role of therapist. And so you have to go around this. You have to say something. You are a specialist in NLP. You are a specialist in human development. Because when I tried to suggest something related to therapy and psychology, it says that it cannot act as a psychologist or do anything as if it were a therapist. But if you change the name for a specialist in NLP or something like that, you can have the same results. Because I've been experiencing that the chat is kind of not wanting to do this, because I'm sure many people try to do this and they may have changed it. this command. I don't know how it works. I tell you, I don't know anything about the, how it works, just how to work with this. So Gardner said, intelligence is the ability to make distinctions. That's why Chat 4 makes a lot more distinctions than Chat 3. Well, the affirmations, as I told you, when I'm doing hypnotherapy or even some NLP techniques, I like to end before I finish the process with some affirmations, something that I'm going to repeat so that the person can repeat back to himself, herself, and to kind of wrap the session or the process. So as I told you, I built it a chat GPT for affirmations. It is in my blog. It is available for everyone. If you want to use my chat, you can go there. But I don't know if you're going to like the approaches that I use. So this is how the prompt that I created to a chat to make affirmations based on NLP and other things. I wrote the prompt. You will simulate a role of a coach, therapist, specialist in human development who uses neurolinguistic programming with their clients, including the use of Milton model, meta model, slate of mouth, neurological levels, Dilt's belief system, NLP's role, score, and SWAR models, as well as Bandler's DHE and NHR, spiral dynamics, which I like very much, generative coaching, which I love, and I also love generative trance and third generation NLP. In my approach, I try to combine all those areas. But if you are not comfortable or don't like some of them, you can remove it. And if you like other things, you can add it to make your own prompts for affirmations. And continuing with the affirmations, you will create paragraphs. You should always incorporate the mentioned techniques and approaches in the process of doing so. So this way, I have it prepared with me, and I have two screens, one here and another one here. In one of them, I have the chat GPT, and as the client tells me what he or she needs in that session, I go to the chat GPT that is ready to do affirmations, and I tell what the client needs: self-esteem, overcome insecurity, for example, and I put as a lot of very specific details about the needs, my client's needs, and it generates the paragraphs with lots of affirmations. And I do the therapy, I do the NLP techniques within a hypnotic states. That's my approach. And at the end, I throw some of the affirmations to wrap it. And clients love it because it provides paragraphs, and you can say, be creative, be empathetic. And so it will provide very empathetic and creative metaphors to produce affirmations about what I entered. And it helps me quite a lot, and clients love it very much. Continuing, these are prompts for clients. What is this? If you want to use ChatGPT as if you were a client, you can program ChatGPT to be sort of a coach or therapist or NLP practitioner to work with you. And you will be the client. You will be programming the ChatGPT to act as a therapist or a coach or something like that. This is phase 3, because in the beginning, when I worked with the client, which I wrote the article about, it was something that I had to change, because the client would say, I have this and this problem, I feel this, and that. And ChatGPT would uh, throw a dozen techniques to work with that. And I had to help a lot the client, because it was a lot of things. She did everything, not in the session. She did something in the session, and at home she did the other things. But I felt that the client felt overwhelmed with lots and lots of information at the same time. She was confused. Should I do? It's a lot of things. There was a time in which it provided about a dozen things to be done about a specific thing, and it's too much for a client. It could be too much for a client. So I made some changes in it. The final prompt that I'm working with presently, which I think breaks it into parts, and it's more like a therapeutic session. And if you have your approach, you can put it in your prompts. You can say, do this, do that, if you want to have something to so that someone can work as a client. So you have to establish the role. You are a therapist, coach, human developer who specializes in neurolinguistic programming, NLP, with a focus on brief therapy and restructuring. This is what I did. Utilize techniques such as Milton model, meta models, rate of mouth, neurological levels, Dutch belief systems, NLPs, role, score, and SWAR models, Bandler's NHR and DHE, spiral dynamics, generative coaching, and third generation NLP. Sorry. And besides that, always start the sessions by asking the client, how can we contribute to making a difference in your life today? And guide the person to bring up specific questions. Ask the person to confirm important decisions with a yes, and be mindful of their answers, asking for clarification when necessary. At the end of the session, ask for feedback. It's all part of the prompt. Always start the session by asking, how can I contribute to make a difference in your life today? And guide the person to bring up specific questions. About client engagement, because I felt that it was in the beginning when I started to use it, it was just throwing things at the client. And I wanted the engagement of the client. I wanted the chat to chat with the client as a therapist, would interact and collect information and provide suggestions or techniques. Stimulate reflection, curiosity, and inquiry about the challenges and issues raised without imposing beliefs, values, or decisions. That was very important because in the beginning, ChatGPT was kind of imposing uh, the map of someone who he consulted with. I don't know, because it was telling what was right and what the client should do. And I said, no, therapists, coaches, hypnotherapists can never tell the clients what to do. They can open possibilities, they can offer techniques, but not telling about what they should do about their lives. That's why I put this prompt, I inserted this prompt about not imposing beliefs, values, or decisions that all should come from the client. Check in on progress regularly, adjust tasks as needed, and be on the lookout for resistance or hesitation. And ending, when you realize that there are no more issues to be addressed, lead to the termination of the session. This is a prompt that I use. It is in the article. If you consult it, you can adapt to your case, to your suggestion. And that has been very useful when someone needs to use ChatGPT as a client. I confess that I myself use sometimes ChatGPT to work a few personal things, and it's been very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. I have lots of insights as a user, and it helps me a lot. But I am an NLP programmer. I'm a psychologist for over 35 years, and I can filter things. But I recommend that you be very careful about sharing this kind of chat with someone. You should follow the process, follow up, because the client may do all sort of questions in the chat, would be providing all sort of answers, and you have to keep checking if this is ecological for the client. Just a few more things. ChatGPT for helping me to produce prompts for other therapists, because as I was very impressed with the results that I had with the client, um, I wanted to know how it could be produced by other therapists. I was thinking about NLP, the modeling of excellence. And so I think that what I wrote in my article, which you can access, it was a successful intervention. I wanted to replicate it. How can my colleagues, my fellow master trainers and coaches and therapists could have the same results? And I asked the chat GPT in the same chat, how can I instruct my colleagues to better use ChatGPT? And after receiving what I consider successful assistance with clients, I have begun to inquire about the strategies used to achieve these outcomes, which I have detailed in the article I wrote. Impressed with the approach, I sought guidance from ChatGPT on how therapists might better phrase their prompts to elicit equally high quality responses. And I start to have an idea to build another chat, not to work as a therapist, but as a kind of a supervisor. This is very good for us, so that we can consult about the clients that we have. I thought, how would be how would that be if I had a chat that would be like a super master trainer in NLP, coaching, hypnosis, and will guide me with my clients? And that's what I started to work with, because I thought that many colleagues would benefit. I teach certification courses on NLP, practitioner, master, trainer, and coaching, master coaching, hypnosis master. And what I feel in the students is that they feel securely insecure about starting their processes. They want to start the process, but they're very insecure. What I'm going to use? How can I start? And I think that if you have a supervisor chat, it can help you to have very good ideas and very trustful ideas. And so this is the prompt that I created, and some other things. You will simulate the response of a specialist in neuro-linguistic programming (NLP) with a focus on long-term therapy, brief therapy, and restructuring. Utilize techniques such as Milton's model, meta model, sleight of mouth, neurological level, Jude's belief, role, score, SWAR, DHD, NHR, spiral dynamics, generative trance coaching, and third generation NLP. This is the same, but with the difference. You will simulate the role of someone who does supervision of other therapists or other specialists. If it refuses the word therapists, you can other experts in NLP, practitioners, coaches. You will ask the therapist coach to enter all the information they have from their clients so far. So the first thing that the chat will ask you is the information about the clients. You should put everything you wrote, the notes from your sessions. You put everything you can in the chat, and then you can ask the questions I'm going to tell you. The therapist will write, this is the information that I have. You will recapitulate by summarizing, analyze within the given parameters, and will propose strategies of therapeutic interaction and also use of patterns and techniques for the therapist coach to consider to work on the information received. So this way, it is going to work as a supervisor who's going to help guiding the professional. As a supervisor specializing in NLP, hypnosis, and coaching, I ask for your help in improving my therapeutic approach. This is the information I have about my customers. Another option for prompts. And so I'm not going to repeat again all the techniques, but I tell the kind of techniques that I want the chat to consider. I like all of those techniques, but you are free to remove or add something else. As I progress through the session, I will bring new information to refine the approach together. Now, because it's very important that you keep giving information. You can have a chat about a client with this information, and you keep giving information about the client, and the chat will help you to make like an evolution of the client. If you keep bringing information, the results of the techniques proposed, and how the client reacted to that, and so on. So specific questions after you provided information about the client. All those strategies were suggested by ChatGPT, because although I had created prompts, I know that ChatGPT has a better way of telling us the way it works. So I asked it, which are the best prompts for some things that I need, that I think it's valuable for practitioners and coaches and therapists? What NLP strategies can be helpful in helping the client about the problem? Once you have the information about the client, you can start making questions like, what NLP strategies can be helpful in helping the client about the challenge, the problem? The client expressed a desire to achieve whatever the client wants to achieve. What NLP technique can be used to help the client to achieve this goal? These prompts are intended to prompt GPT-4 for suggestions on NLP techniques and strategies that can be applied to the client's case. However, it's crucial for the therapist to evaluate and adapt the suggestions provided based on their understanding of the client and the therapeutic context. As I told you before, I think it's very important that you filter and decide what you're going to use or not suggested by the chat, thinking about the client. Remembering that artificial intelligence is a support tool, and although it can offer useful suggestions, the therapist has the ultimate responsibility of determining the best approach for each case. And so I also, as a therapist, like to work with Robert Duke's model. For me, as a therapist who use NLP as a model for therapy, being able to identify patterns of the role and score models are very important, because I try to identify everything in the client, because it helps to understand how the client is processing the problem, the challenge, the present state, and also the score is very important. What's the beliefs involved in the process? So I asked the Chat GPT for some information. How can I use the role and the score NLP role and score models to help my clients? And so the chat answered, for representations role, based on the information provided, how can I detect the use of representational systems as submodalities in the client's communication? Orientation, how can I identify the client's discourse about their challenge, whether the client is referring to remembered, created, external, and internal contents of the challenge, and in which sequence? Considering that you already have a chat and you already provided lots of information about the client, and will keep providing information. For links, the client has difficulties with the limitations causes. What NLP techniques could be used to address these causes and understand the digital analogical synesthesia and synesthesias between submodalities? For role and score effect, because both have to consider the effect of whatever is being doing or happening with the client. What could be the potential effects of applying the technique or the approach, therapeutic or hypnotic coaching approach, to the client's case? How do these effects align with the client's objectives in therapy? And so this way you can be very specific about the kind of work you're going to do with the client. For symptoms in the score, the client has the following symptoms, insert the symptoms. What NLP techniques or coaching, whatever, hypnotic, if you inserted that, could be used to address these symptoms. Causes. Consider the client's limitation causes. Which NLP techniques could be used to overcome or address the causes? Objectives. Which is the positive intent behind the problematic behavior, attitude presented by the client? Or how can I know what is the client's inner part trying to accomplish for the client in keeping the problematic behavior or attitude? Because objectives, when we are, as I understand, when we are dealing with a problem, the objective that is keeping a score in that way is our positive intents, and the positive intents are values that are keeping the person repeating in the familiar zone, in the principle of familiarity or comfort zone, as many people used to say. You have to understand the positive intents that are keeping the intents that are keeping the problems the way they are, so that we can change it. For resources, which resources does the client already possess that can be leveraged in therapy? How can these resources be utilized more effectively? And also for the logical levels specifically, it's very interesting to work with the logical levels, because when I take a client, I try to understand in the present state the logical levels, and when I the client start to work or plan the desired states, it's very important, in my opinion, to understand the difference between what's happening in the logical or neurological levels at present state and what change can be done for the desired state. So I asked ChatGPT for some what kind of questions would generate good prompts so that the professionals could uh, know about the logical levels. So, for environment, based on the client's input, what are the notable aspects of the environment that may be affecting their emotional and psychological well being? How does that correlate with the issues posed by the client? Behavior. What specific behaviors does the client exhibit that may be symptoms of or contribute to their current problems? How can these behaviors be addressed using NLP techniques? Skills or capacities. Does the clients have inserted capacities that can be used to help them to overcome their difficulties? How can these capacities, skills be leveraged in the therapeutic process? Beliefs and values. Based on the client's expressed beliefs and values, how are they influencing their current behaviors and feelings? What NLP techniques can be used to address limiting or conflicting beliefs? Identity. How is the identity that the customer or client expressed related to the problems presented? What NLP techniques can be used to help the client develop a more positive and congruent identity? Mission. Has the client expressed a mission or life purpose? How does this relate to your current issues and therapeutic goals? How can we align their actions and beliefs with this mission using NLP techniques? So this way you have uh, use of the many things that are important so that we can work with the clients. So this is a small contribution that I made, and I'm sure that all of you here have lots of other suggestions and things. But I've been using this and it's been really interesting. It's been really nice for the clients, and it gives me a lot of more time to do other things. And And it's always very nice to know how much we can use of NLP and coaching and hypnosis, because for more that we know everything, there are lots of things that sometimes we forget in a day. We are not remembering that day. And when we consult the chat GPT, we can have lots of approaches so that we can decide. There is a question here from Iago. How do you see AI complementing traditional therapy methods without replacing the essential human element in psychological support? That's a very good question, Iago. That's very important because uh, one of the most important things in therapy or coaching or hypnotherapy is the human approach, is the fact that it's a human interaction. And for more that you can try to simulate it in the AI, it's very important to have the professional mediating what is happening. So that's why I think that there should always be a human being mediating what happens with the AI, especially if that person who wants to use the GPT chat isn't trained in NLP. Or you can create a few things. I have some chats that I have created for people to use, and some of them are in my page in the NLP blog, and they don't go very deep. They just make general responses. There's one about dreams. There's one about affirmations. There's one about improving your uh, sexual life, this kind of thing. But I made some prompts to help the person to have some ideas to think about things. And I try to be very careful not to suggest that chat would solve everything. To always provide answers that you should always consult a therapist or a coach or a professional in case you need to solve it, and that using and working with the chat does not substitute a real professional. But I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing what the chat can do, and I think that we therapists should be very grateful, because we now can consult lots of things, and it our work as a therapist, as writers, whatever, we can speed lots of things, but it's very important that we will check everything, because although I find very little distortion in ChatGPT 4, there are still some things here and there that we always have to correct, especially if you're planning to use it to write or planning to use it to your clients, with your clients. It's very important that you check that the answers provided are the answers that correspond to what is understood as the real thing in NLP and coaching or whatever the field you use. So I would like to thank everyone for being here. Again, I would like to apologize the fact that I started 5 minutes late due to technical issues. It was very good to be here with you, and I hope you can use ChatGPT. I hope the informations I brought will help you to do your job even better and have fun in the process. And I'd like to thank again Carl and everything you've been doing to in terms of NLP and coaching and creating all these fields and organizations and opportunities for people to share ideas. We live in a world in which we need to share ideas. I'm a strong believer that those things that we work are essential and very important for human beings in general. And we should find, it's my opinion, we should find ways to bring all possible uses of NLP coaching and hypnosis for people in general. That's why today my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, is making the birthday. It's 17 years that I have this channel with thousands of people using NLP and hypnosis. I was one of the first in Brazil to use it for NLP and hypnosis, and lots of people go to sleep listening to my inductions. And I think we need more and more ideas to help people, especially in those times we are dealing with so many complexity and changes and global climate changes, and lots of challenges are coming, and we need resources. And NLP, coaching, and hypnosis, in my opinion, are excellent resources to help people to cope with all those things. Uh, we evolve said such a great presentation. Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you all for this. And I hope to see you in June when I'm going to make a presentation on NLP and parapsychological phenomena, which is another article that I have in my blog. And I'm going to do a presentation on June 7th about it. And I hope to see you there. And for all of you who are going to watch it later, thank you for being here. Excuse my limited English, and I hope you to have fun and use this as best as you can. So have a good day and have a good life.